So my name's Ian Battersby, I'm dyslexic, I'm a vet, I'm a specialist vet, so that means I've done exams to be a European and RCVS specialist. So I head the internal medicine department at Davies Veterinary Specialist, so I get referred difficult cases. I also do work outside of Davies, so I've done a lot of work on antibiotic usage and I've won awards for that. I'm also chairman of a charity, Mission Rabies, which is a charity that vaccinates dogs against rabies in third world countries. And recently I was awarded fellowship at the Royal College. So there's a few other bits and bobs as well. Oh, and I'm a dad as well. So my career journey up to now and how dyslexia's affected it. It's easiest to start from the beginning really, when I first realised there was a problem. I was 11 and we did a spelling test, and it was one of those where you had to write your answers and then hand them to the person next to you. They'd mark it and then read out your answer. And I got 1 out of 20, and I can still remember, well, I can feel it now, the nausea and the dread of, as the teacher got closer and closer to us, and I was trying to persuade the guy next to me just to adjust but he was getting more and more excited about reading out such a low mark. And that was a horrible, horrible moment. I mean, he did the right thing. Shouldn't be dishonest on tests. He did the right thing, saying the right result, but I at that point it was looking a real possibility I was going to be put in remedial for everything. Despite me getting, top of the class in geography, high marks in science, high marks in maths, because dyslexia wasn't really recognised as an issue then. And that would have been career over for me, because if you're in that lower set, you can't get higher than a C in the exams, that's the way it was set up. So, I wouldn't have been, even though I was getting high A's in science, if I'd have been in remedial class, the exam they'd have set me would only been a C as a maximum grade. So I wouldn't have done any of this. So I just had to, I don't know where I found it from, but I just was determined to try and not be in that situation again. So I worked out ways to just learn enough. If we had 20 spellings to do, I'd learn 10 to the max. I'd spend ages writing them out repeatedly. I wouldn't understand how you'd formulate the word. I'd just parrot learn it. And then there was more challenge, getting my, to go to university. I'd already decided by, I think I was 12, I wanted to be a vet. I needed to get C in French and GCSE English. So French was a massive challenge, and I've never worked so hard. I probably worked as hard for my French GCSE as what I did for my specialist exams, and those are really hard. And I had a fantastic teacher, Miss Roxburgh, who I don't know where she is now, but she did extra lessons for me before class, before school, at lunchtime and after school, and I scraped my C. And that taught me to learn how to fail and how to pull yourself back and work out how to overcome problems. And when I got to vet school and I had the challenge of doing anatomy, which is kind of like French on steroids really for me, Latin words, long Latin words describing muscles. I'd already knew I could overcome it. I knew how to overcome it, and it took me a lot of time. I'd spend a lot longer than my other colleagues in vet school. They'd read it, they'd know it, they'd know how to spell it. I'd have to spend my whole Saturdays working out these words. But because I know I'd done it before, I'd learned I could do it again. And if I look back now, then all the strategies that I'd evolved, problem solving, you're constantly trying to look at ways to answer a question with the minimum amount of words, or learn with the minimum amount of words, or simplify things down. Even trying to pick the right things to learn for the exam. So, when it came to my specialist exams, some of those textbooks, it would take me, the font's so small, it'd take me 30 minutes to read one page, and these are books that are like 1,000 pages long. But if you spend 30 minutes reading a page really, really well, because you want to really understand it, you tend to memorise it a lot better. So, there's been challenges, it's been lonely at times, but at the same time, some of the skills I was forced to learn, have been a big advantage now in my career, with my day-to-day work. I suppose looking back, what I realised is that I learned how to fail and I learned how to pick myself up. I learned how to problem solve because I was constantly trying to look at ways that I could do things with the minimum amount of words. So answers with the smallest number amount of words, learning with the smallest amount of words. I was teaching myself to focus on remembering things that people said rather than having to rely on textbooks. When I got to vet school, I had a similar big challenge. Anatomy was a nightmare for me. Huge Latin names for muscles and things like that. Brachycephalicus. That took me a lot of hours to just keep writing that out to learn it. And I'd spend so much more time learning anatomy than some of the other subjects that were more kind of problem, kind of methodical for me. So, it didn't feel like a great journey, but because I was in that situation, I've learned how to, like I say, to fail and to pick myself up. So, if there is a challenge that I want to do and people don't believe in me or whatever, and I think I can do it, I will work out a way because I know I can. Problem solving now is second nature to me, and I'm a medicine clinician, and I've got the creative pathways in my brain. Whether they were always there because of the dyslexia or whether I've enhanced them, I don't know. But certainly, like I say, it was a very lonely journey at times. But without some of those experiences in retrospect, I wouldn't be where I am now. So one of the biggest challenges with my day-to-day job, I've chosen a job where there's a lot of words. And there's colleagues with very high expectations for grammar and spelling. So I do get, feedback from colleagues about, even on scientific papers about my spelling on them. But I've learned to just take that on the chin now. Everybody can't be good at everything, and that's part of learning, not to get things to get you down, really. So that's the main thing, really. The benefits now are the skills I've acquired. Whether they are, I always had them, but I was forced to develop them more. So you can tell when I'm assessing cases or approaching problems and things. I approach it differently to my colleagues, and actually a different approach can be an advantage. And that might be not only with a case, but it's on analysing and because one of the things I do is I simplify everything down because that's the best way I can memorise it. And communicating things that are simplified is a big advantage. It's an important skill. My favourite thing about my job? Problem solving and being creative. So that's the bit, I love the bit about working out what's going on. I love some of the other stuff I do that's not just dealing with cases, it's kind of doing projects and stuff. It's working out how to create a solution, working out how people engage with it, trying to understand how people might be more receptive to ideas. I'm lucky enough to be able to do cases and that kind of thing. And again, that's a skill that I've developed. I don't know whether it's always been there, but that's part of what I really enjoy. The advice I give my younger self is, well, you're not alone. You can do it. You did do it. It's all about, words are important. They're an important part of society, so you have to adapt to some extent. You can't just ignore it. You've got to work out strategies, particularly if you want to do a job where words are involved. But it is possible. There's people who've done other jobs, that require words as well. Like there's a court lawyer one of the most famous court lawyers in America is dyslexic, and he's worked out ways of memorising stuff. And I know that there's research showing that dyslexia's brains are, the vocal centres are, I think it's the vocal centres, or the auditory system isn't quite wired up the same. So that's why you have problems forming words and stuff. To adapt to that, you create other pathways. So I just see it, I just say to my younger self, think of those pathways as underdeveloped, and they're just like muscles, and you go in the gym, and it'll take more time, and you'll work them up, and then when you're older, there'll be a big advantage. The message I give to dyslexic people in Scotland would be, don't underestimate yourself. It's one thing it's a challenge. Other people have challenges as well, and it may be, and it can be really hard. But if you believe in yourself, you can develop ways to adapt, and the ways you adapt can actually be a big advantage in the long term, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. You know, you just got to see it as a long-term game and you'll get there.